The room was heavy with tension, a silence so thick it almost echoed. For years, viewers had seen Kody Brown fiercely defend Robyn, shielding her from every criticism, every whisper of blame. But this time, something shattered. In that interview chair, the same man who once called Robyn his soul connection looked her in the eye and said the unthinkable. "You're lying." Robyn's face froze. The calm, composed expression she'd mastered for years flickered, for just a second, into shock and disbelief. The air around them seemed to crack. Even the cameras caught it. Viewers who'd followed their story from the beginning couldn't believe what they were seeing. The once inseparable duo, now facing each other not as allies, but as adversaries. Hi everyone, I'm Hamna, and this is TLC's Sister Wives Exposed Hub, where we dive deep beneath the surface of reality TV's most complicated family. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe and join the conversation because today, we're not just talking about a fight. We're uncovering what might be the breaking point of Kody and Robyn's carefully built illusion. What led Kody, once blinded by loyalty, to finally call out the woman he'd given everything for? Was this the moment the mask slipped, the moment the facade of perfect harmony finally cracked? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear changes everything. To understand this moment of betrayal, we have to rewind. Back to the time Robyn first walked into the Brown family. She wasn't just another wife. She was introduced as the missing piece, the one who would bring balance, healing, and peace to an already fragile plural marriage. Kody's eyes lit up around her in a way that felt different, softer, almost enchanted. He called her calm, understanding, spiritual. And Robyn embraced that image completely, from the very beginning. She crafted her role as the peacemaker. She listened more than she spoke, smiled through conflict, and presented herself as the wife who could understand Kody when no one else could. Then came the phrase that would define her, and eventually expose her. "I speak Kody." It sounded innocent at first, even loving. But over time, that phrase became something far more powerful. Whenever a disagreement arose, Robyn stepped in, claiming she could translate what Kody really meant. She softened his harsh words, reshaped his anger into reason, and turned his silence into justification. Slowly, she wasn't just interpreting Kody, she was redefining him. Watch early episodes and you'll see it clearly. When the other wives questioned Kody's choices, Robyn would calmly interject, "That's not what he means. What Kody's trying to say is..." And just like that, her version of Kody became the official version. The more she spoke Kody, the less Kody spoke for himself. And the less space the other wives had to be heard. It was a psychological shift so subtle that it almost went unnoticed, except in Kody's behavior. He began seeking Robyn's approval before making decisions, echoing her phrases, defending her even when she wasn't under attack. His emotional world started revolving around her validation, while the connection with his other wives slowly dissolved. What looked like harmony was actually dependency, a dynamic built on quiet control disguised as empathy. Robyn didn't raise her voice, she didn't argue, she translated. But behind that calm voice was the power to shape perception, to guide emotions, and to turn Kody Brown, once the head of a plural family, into a man who could no longer think without her whispering in his ear. As Robyn's influence deepened, something heartbreaking unfolded in the background, the quiet disappearance of the other wives. Mary, Janelle, and Christine weren't just losing Kody's time, they were losing their voices. The women who had once laughed, argued, and built a life together now found themselves walking on eggshells, unsure if speaking up would even matter anymore. Christine felt it the most. During her daughter Isabel's scoliosis surgery, the pain wasn't just medical, it was emotional. She begged Kody to be there for their daughter, to show up as a father when it mattered most. But Kody chose to stay behind, citing COVID precautions, while Robyn's family remained the emotional center of his world. That decision broke something in Christine. You could see it in her eyes during that episode. The realization that Robyn's comfort had become more important than her child's pain. Janelle tried to keep the family together. She planned gatherings, encouraged Kody to reconnect, and tried to keep hope alive at Coyote Pass. But every effort ended the same way, with Robyn's quiet interjections, her concerns, her interpretations of what Kody really wanted. What once were open discussions became filtered conversations, Robyn's version of Kody's will. Janelle wasn't arguing with her husband anymore. She was arguing with the wall Robyn had built around him. And then there was Mary, the first wife, the one who stood beside Kody through every hardship. Yet by the time Robyn entered, Mary had become invisible. Her loyalty, her patience, her forgiveness, all of it faded into the background while Robyn claimed the spotlight under the guise of unity. Every time Mary tried to express her pain, Kody dismissed it as drama, and Robyn was right there to soothe him, reinforcing that Mary just didn't understand him the way she did. Fans began to see the truth play out in real time. Robyn wasn't the peacemaker she once claimed to be. She had become the gatekeeper, the quiet controller deciding who was worthy of Kody's attention and who was not. Mary watched decades of loyalty go unrewarded. Janelle fought to keep a crumbling foundation from turning to dust. Christine finally broke free, realizing that staying meant surrendering her dignity. And through it all, Robyn kept her soft voice, her tears, and her image of innocence, while behind the calm, she held the keys to Kody's heart, his home, and his choices. When the emotional control started to crack, Robyn reached for something even stronger, faith. It wasn't the open-hearted belief that once held the Brown family together. It became a tool, something she used to reinforce her role as the moral compass of a collapsing household. In the early years, religion was a shared foundation for the Browns. It justified their plural lifestyle and gave meaning to their sacrifices. But when the family began falling apart, that faith suddenly took on a new, selective purpose, one that seemed to always protect Robyn. As Christine made the brave decision to leave, Robyn's calm shifted into something quietly judgmental. She began talking about spiritual covenants and the need for releases, phrases that hadn't mattered to Kody for years. He had already drifted from those beliefs, choosing emotional comfort over doctrine. But Robyn suddenly revived the rules when they benefited her. One of the most telling examples came when Mary tried to understand her own place after decades of loneliness. Kody had long stopped being her husband in every sense, and Mary was emotionally ready to walk away. But Robyn insisted that she couldn't be free without a church release. The irony was striking. The same Robyn who had legally married Kody, shattering the family's original spiritual balance, now claimed to be the guardian of their faith. What made it worse was how these spiritual claims always seemed to circle back to Robyn's security. By insisting on those old rules, she kept the other wives emotionally tied to a system Kody himself no longer respected. It was a clever form of control, not through anger or confrontation, but through guilt. She used the language of faith as both a shield and a leash. When Kody lost his spiritual conviction, Robyn stepped in as the new authority, the interpreter of divine approval. And when the other wives tried to move forward, she cast their freedom as rebellion. Her faith wasn't about unity anymore. It was about hierarchy. The hypocrisy didn't go unnoticed by viewers. Robyn preached spiritual loyalty while living comfortably by self-serving rules. She claimed to be heartbroken over the family's collapse, but never questioned the control that kept her secure at the center. In the end, faith became her final weapon, not to heal, but to hold. And every time she invoked God or covenant, it wasn't about saving the family's soul. It was about saving her place within it. If emotions gave Robyn power, money sealed it. The moment Kody's heart aligned with her, the family's financial balance began to tilt, and fans could see it happening in real time. Every dollar spent, every family decision made, somehow circled back to Robyn's household. What started as shared sacrifice slowly turned into selective generosity. The first real shift came when Kody legally divorced Mary, the woman who had been with him since the beginning, so that he could legally marry Robyn. The reason he gave was practical. He wanted to adopt Robyn's 3 children from her previous marriage and make the family whole. On paper, it sounded noble. But in reality, that move changed everything. It wasn't just a legal adjustment. It was the transfer of power. From that moment on, Robyn's household became the official one, the center of all family logistics, and more quietly, the financial hub. Once Robyn's children were adopted, Kody's time, energy, and money seemed to flow there. When Janelle and Christine tried to build their own spaces on Coyote Pass, the dream property meant to unite the entire family. Their plans stalled. Paperwork delayed, funds tight, and decisions endlessly postponed, while Robyn's home remained fully furnished, stable and secure. Viewers noticed details the Browns probably didn't think would stand out. Christmas gifts for Robyn's kids looked extravagant compared to the modest ones for the others. When Janelle struggled to pay rent, Kody questioned her financial planning, yet never seemed concerned about the expenses of Robyn's full-time nanny, a detail that Christine couldn't help but call out. Fans still remember Christine's pointed question, "What does the nanny do?" It wasn't just sarcasm, it was the breaking point, the public exposure of how far Kody's favoritism had gone. Every decision that was supposed to benefit the family ended up strengthening Robyn's foundation. Shared funds were spent where Kody spent his nights, at Robyn's home. Family meetings happened under her roof. Even emotional conversations about fairness or property ended with Robyn's concerns being prioritized. What made it worse was the pattern. When any wife expressed discomfort, Kody called it jealousy or disloyalty. But Robyn's needs? Those were treated as gospel. Money and love merged into one power system, with Robyn as the constant beneficiary. By the time the other wives began voicing their frustration, it was already too late. Coyote Pass, once a dream of equality, had become symbolic of everything broken, the empty land that mirrored the emotional distance between them all. In the eyes of many fans, Robyn had become the queen of the castle, not through open conflict but through a quiet, calculated consolidation of power. Kody's wallet and his will both lived under Robyn's roof, while the rest of the family watched their shared dream dissolve into a hierarchy built on emotional dependency and financial control. It happened in a single, electric moment. The man who had defended Robyn through every storm suddenly turned on her, his voice sharp, his patience gone. Kody Brown, once her greatest ally, called Robyn a liar on camera. The words landed like a thunderclap. For a second, everything stopped. Her face froze. His tone didn't soften, and the silence that followed said more than any confession ever could. For years, Robyn had been the calm one, the voice of reason, the soft shield around Kody's temper. He'd protected her image at all costs, even when it meant losing the rest of his family. But now the roles had flipped. Robyn sat speechless, her carefully composed presence cracking under the weight of her own tactics. Kody wasn't translating for her, and she wasn't speaking for him. It was raw, unfiltered, and real. The perfect image they had built was collapsing right in front of the cameras. Viewers had waited years for this kind of honesty. For so long, they'd watched Christine cry alone, Janelle fight for space, Mary fade into silence, all while Robyn maintained that soft-spoken innocence. But in that confrontation, fans saw what the other wives had lived through, the mask slipping, the truth surfacing. It wasn't about a single argument. It was about years of control and loyalty finally colliding. The fan reactions were instant. Social media exploded with disbelief, validation, even relief. Many said it felt like justice, not because Kody was right, but because the illusion was finally broken. The family's unraveling wasn't just emotional anymore. It was visible, undeniable, and public. That exchange, just a few words, a moment of lost control, represented the entire history of sister wives in miniature. The unspoken power shifts, the favoritism, the gaslighting, all condensed into one brutal truth. Even the strongest manipulation eventually turns on itself. For longtime viewers, it was bittersweet. They'd spent over a decade watching hope turn into heartbreak, unity into silence. Seeing Kody finally challenge Robyn didn't fix anything, but it did reveal everything. The throne she had built on quiet control had begun to crack, and this time, no calm voice or tearful confession could hold it together. After everything, the tears, the loyalty, the silence, one truth remains. Love can heal, but when mixed with control, faith, and power, it can also destroy. The Browns once promised forever, yet somewhere along the way, devotion turned into domination, and unity became submission. Watching their story unravel wasn't just reality TV. It was a mirror for how easily manipulation hides behind words like commitment and faith. Kody and Robyn's downfall didn't happen overnight. It built slowly, one excuse, one favoritism, one translation at a time. And in the end, all the secrets they worked so hard to protect were exposed by their own hands. That's what makes this story so powerful. The truth didn't come from outsiders. It came from within their own walls. What do you think, guys? Was this the moment everything finally shattered beyond repair? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and join me, Hamna from TLC's Sister Wives Exposed Hub, for more honest, unfiltered breakdowns of the stories behind the smiles. Because in the end, no matter how long it takes, truth always finds a way to rise, even in the quietest house on Coyote Pass.